Hey, greetings. This is Leroy. I was asked a question regarding how to design a class. And so I wanted to talk about that just a little bit when it comes to design, or how do you sit down and really kind of develop some ideas out. And I was coming across some notes that I had, and I was looking at this, and I said, maybe it's time to talk about this. And what I call this, I use this quite often in the world of safety, and that's called the 7-10 exercise. And why I call that is because you may have heard the story about the nondescript hair-colored, nondescript gendered individual going into one of the auto places and saying that they needed some 7-10, and not really knowing what 7-10 or 7-10 oil was. The big question was, she came in with a picture from the engine, and it had 7-10 or oil. Now, the reason why I call it 7-10, and it's not really about the joke itself, but really the whole issue is when we talk about oil, let's say talk about oil change. How many of you change your own oil? Now, I use this quite extensively. I've used this concept in teaching speech. I've used this concept in philosophy. I primarily use this in a couple of courses, in graduate and undergraduate courses I taught in aviation safety, accident investigation, system design, system safety analysis, and 2 or 3 other courses. I called it the 7-10 is because when we talk about changing oil, what does it take to change oil? And so you have different opinions about it. And one individual says, I go buy a 6-pack of beer, I go sit in front of the TV and have my wife go to Jiffy Lube. And that's one way to look at it. But if you're going to change your own oil, what is it going to take? And if I were to change the oil in my car today, my 2012 Toyota, compared to the 1957 Ford that I grew up with, what are some of the differences that's going to take place? And what are some of the steps I'm going to have to take to ensure that I can change that oil? And the concept, it doesn't matter what you're dealing with, it's still somewhat the same concept when you're talking about, okay, what's it going to take to create a class? And the assumption is I've got 4 or 5 things to do. And the reason why I'm kind of bringing this up is, one, somebody asked me this question, and two, in a meeting I was at about 2 or 3 weeks ago, somebody asked about courses and what to do, and several schools have come up with a list, what they call the 5 elements for your LMS, for what you need for your class, the very minimum. And this is a face-to-face class, not the online class. This is just face-to-face. And they listed these 5 elements as being syllabus, schedule, grade book, announcement, and faculty information. And a lot of this is based on just making sure the student has that information available. How many times have you had a student come in and say, I lost my syllabus. I really didn't know. I don't have a course schedule. And so you'll see in a lot of these schools now are saying, well, let's put the schedule out there. Let's put it up there for the students to have online somewhere. And so, like for instance, Blackboard is a good tool for that. You have all the capabilities of it. And so when I mentioned bringing this up, they said, well, how do you come up with this stuff? How do you work with this? I'm going to give you some pictures here that I use, and I've used these not only in accident investigation, but I've also used these in development of programs. I get a phone call, somebody wants me to come in and do some consulting for them. What I do is get a very good basic outline of what they anticipate. And one of the first 2 or 3 hours that I have with them is to really come down with a plan, and oftentimes using one of these various tools I'm going to show you right now. And so with that, let me just go ahead and bring up my pictures. I have them here somewhere. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, one of the first pictures I'm going to bring up, and this is called a fault tree and process. In accident investigation, like when the 2 shuttles went down, the first thing they do is start building these fault trees. I'm talking about a package and a half as far as fault tree, how to develop this out. You'd be surprised how far back you can go with these. But using this same concept with the and/or gates, that's part of it. Boolean algebra. That's only algebra. That's only math I teach is Boolean, and I don't do a very good job of that. But that's because that's when it comes to fault tree, you want to make sure that you have your frequency of events and such. But it really gives you a good idea of how to break some issues down. So, for instance, this particular one, if you go from left to right as you look at it, you have under it the bridge construction getting delayed, for instance. You can use this for any project that you're working with. If you're working on campus here and you're trying to figure out student satisfaction, you can use a fault tree analysis to really develop this out. So underneath of it, it's the unavailability of construction material, there's the unfavorable weather conditions, and then equipment problems. And if you notice that you have 2 pink boxes and 1 green, well, the weather, there's not a whole lot you can do to control that. But the other 2 you can control. And what you do is you see 2 gates down there off of each one. The first one, unavailability, you have scarcity of raw material and shortage of funds. Those are 2 factors there. The other one, equipment problems, damage, and unavailability of equipment. So that's one way that you look at it. So you can take a look at your class, and let's just say I'm going to list out 5 elements. Here's my class. And so I may underneath this put in part of this tree is syllabus, schedule, gradebook, announcements, and faculty information. And then out from underneath that, then I can tree out exactly what it is I need to put in there and how I need to put it in. And so you don't really have to have and/or gates, but at least have it treed out so you know what's under there. And that's just one example from that aspect. The other, here's another one. This is kind of smaller. This is has to do with some process. But again, you can see how the tree works, and you'll notice that it's not unlike sometimes we see in an org chart, but it breaks out, and then you find different areas that's further broken out. And you can go as far as you want as far as breaking these things down. But using that, what it does, you put the information on your out in front of you, so it gives you a better idea of how to project time. Because for a person to develop a class, you need about 3 hours for anywhere from 3 to 6 hours for every hour that the class is taught. Okay, so let's say I have 14 weeks, and that's on a given course, let's say, and then it's a 2-hour course per week. So multiply that by 3. That's how many hours it's going to take to develop the course. Now, once it's developed, now you're done. Okay. Here's the other tool that I use. This has been used in total quality management. You've seen it in a lot of different products out there. That when it comes to the cause and effect tree here. Of course, here it says it's a problem. You don't have to really have a problem here, but I can put in that I need to communicate with my students through the LMS. And so in this, I may put in here, I may put in the syllabus, I may put in the schedule, I'll put in the grade book, I'll put in announcements, I'll put in faculty information. Now, what are some of the details to this? How detailed do I want to get? Let's say I'm right in here, I want to put faculty information. Do I want to give them my office hours? Do I need to give them an online contact? Do I need them to sign up for a remind me element where I can text them and I don't have to worry about having their number, they don't have to have my number. So any of those, you list all the things out that what are going to be, even some of the showstoppers as to what that information is and how that goes. So you can do that. That's this is very simple, just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like. Another one is one of these. This is used in accident investigation or failures, trying to find out failures. So you have an ignition. This has to do with an ignition in room 1. And so you go down and try to come up. But anyway, you don't have to have it for an accident or a problem. But if you have a student or a series of students are having problems, you can tree out some of this stuff and figure out what's going on. That's another example. This is another example here. And this is really where you see it. You see people, machines, materials, and methods. But you can build this tree, the Ishikawa fishbone. I think that's what it is, Ishikawa. Yeah. Anyway, that fishbone, you can create that fishbone to help you develop out the course. And of course, the cause and effect organizer, the event is making sure the students have all your information. You don't really have to say cause right here, but that gives you what do I need to have in there to make sure that the student has everything, all the information that's necessary to make sure that it all works. And this is an example of a tree that's out there. I've used this quite often. The way they operate this is they build it out into consequences and factors, and you can build all this out, just depending on how you want to do it. But anyway, you need to put this stuff out on paper, and a lot of folks don't do that. There are other tools out there for that. Now, one of the questions that came up was regarding the mind map. Let me just go over that just a little bit. And I'm using mindmup.com. And here is what I want to do. I want to create a new map. So I can create a public one, I can create a private one, and I can get this thing rocking and rolling. So in this, I'm going to do a real quick and simple one because I'm getting short on time here. In fact, I think I'm going to probably do another one of these, just short and sweet. But I'm going to double click on this, and I'm going to put my course information. Yeah, for nothing else. That's just it. And so I click on this. Now I can right click on this. Well, once I get it set, I have to hit my return. Okay. Now I can insert a child. I can insert a sibling. I can insert different things. I'm going to add childs here. Okay. One of the childs is, and so I go back. Another child is, and it's interesting how you can do this. You can do it different ways. Return. Or I can right click on this, insert it, and because I'm already in a child, I can do a sibling. And so with that, I can then add and there's a lot of different ways that you can do this to make this work. I like the way this works because it gives me a chance to do it, and then it's free. I know I like free stuff. I really hate to spend money on stuff that really isn't. So I have that information there from this. Now I'm going to go back to syllabus because there's where I want to do a little bit of work myself. Now up here you don't see it very well. File, edit, share view. And if you have a way to save this, you can save this into Google Drive. I like doing that, or you can set up your account. And then with that, I'm going to insert under syllabus. I'm going to add a child to this. The syllabus is maybe hours. That's a good way to really break down, because my syllabus meeting really the criteria. I can add another one in here that deals with text. And then what happens here is if I do create that page for syllabus, I create a module for syllabus, start here, and then come down. I can put my syllabus in there, but then I can break down my syllabus into various modules as well, so there's never a question as to what information is. And this is very simple here as far as that goes. And then you can go back and make sure that you have everything there. That's real quick and simple. That's called mind map. And then, excuse me. Then you can save that, and you can then print that out that you have it later on. Or you can actually keep this and add to it as you continue on through the class. For instance, like schedule, you may want to put in there if you have a holiday coming up. And in that schedule, what else do you have on a schedule? Oh yeah, you have study day, and whatever else that you have. With that, and that's where you kind of tend to go with this. The same thing with regular. Well, I hope this helps you a little bit, and but with that, I enjoyed designing your class.